All right. As we're looking at socialization, socialization is all kinds of stuff. But what we can see is the transmission from one person, right, or a group of people to another. And it can be lots of different things: learning how to play with basic toys, learning how to be part of a job or a school, learning traditions like hunting, and all of that is part of socialization. Our objectives today, as we continue to learn about the basics of socialization, is for you to understand what self-development is. I also want you to understand different perspectives on the stages of development. We will focus on two. I want you to be able to apply what we've learned about self-development to the real world. Because ultimately, with all of these things, that's what I want you to be able to do. A lot of this stuff seems kind of abstract sometimes, but if we apply it to the real world, it starts to make more sense to us and is more useful. Before we get to the specific theories of self-development, socialization, what we need to understand is that when we say that someone has been socialized, one, we're not talking about what people mean when they talk about socialized healthcare. It's not the same thing. Socialization is about a person developing their own sense of who they are, or sense of self. And this is especially in relation to other people. We can't have a sense of self in isolation from other people. There was a philosopher named Hegel who went into this in great detail. We aren't going to go into it in that much detail. I've only had one student ever kind of disappointed to hear that. These others can be people who are close to us, but others are also society as a whole. Right? We develop our sense of who we are in relation to other people and our own place in society. And what we all start out as is humans. This, for now, we can kind of set aside the nature-nurture debate and focus on the nurture side of this. Sociologists aren't necessarily saying that we start out as a blank slate, that everything we pick up is purely socialization, but right, we do all start out as human beings. We are the most advanced primates, right, but we are still just animals. We become selves as a result of socialization. I think some of that can sound weird. I hope become a little clearer as we go. And if you ever have doubts, go spend time around infants and young toddlers, and you will understand that we are not all people. We don't start out as people. Infants and toddlers are tyrants and monsters. And I love mine, but they have been tyrants and monsters at that stage of life. We're going to start with Mead as our first perspective on self-development. Right, the same George Herbert Mead we met in Symbolic Interactionism. And he tells us that our distinct identity is our self. And that we develop this sense of self over a series of 4 distinct stages. The first is the imitation stage. This is kind of that monkey see, monkey do stage. Or the same stage where people really talk about very small children being sponges. They see or hear something that you do or say, and they will repeat it. Now, one of the reasons that they will do this, a kid who knows only a handful of words might utter the most shocking profanity, and have no clue why that's a big deal because they have no clue why that's a big deal. They are just imitating. They're not understanding other people's perspectives. They don't know or care why those people do what they do. They see it, they imitate it. And it's during that stage that children will engage in something called parallel play. It might look like they're playing with other kids, but they're not. Right? If you go into a daycare or a preschool with the 1-year-olds and the toddlers, those kids might be playing next to each other, but they're not really interacting with one another. When my youngest was that age, she only interacted with the kid playing next to her if the kid playing next to her dared to take her dolly away. And then that kid was in for it because the youngest has a temper. But again, they're not interacting with other people. It's just about them, and it's just imitation. As children get older, they engage in play. They're not only doing what other people are doing, right, but they're trying to understand why those people are doing what they're doing. And at this point, you will see kids do things like play house, right, where there might be a mommy and a daddy, there might be a big brother, right, there might be a grandma. There are different people, right, doing different things in the house. And some of them will be doing different things based on who they are. Right? So the kids are trying to understand the perspectives of other people. The next stage is the game stage. This is when a child understands the social world sufficiently that they can participate in a game with other people with roles that not only interact but depend with each other, and they can play the game. Baseball is an excellent example of this. And if you go to a t-ball game where you've got a bunch of 5-year-olds, you can see that they're not really at the game stage yet. Right? Everybody can hit, nobody can catch, and if you're in the outfield and you get the ball, almost none of them have any clue what to do with the thing. But go a little farther forward, and kids understand. Rylan, if you are the shortstop, and the pitcher pitches the ball, batter hits the ball comes to you, you don't catch it, it's not a clean out, right? It's a grounder, but you pick it up, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with that ball? Where are you going to throw it? Oh, Rakai is trying to bail you out. Okay. First base. You're going to throw it to why first base? It's not the base that's closest to you, Rakaya. Like pick third, pick second. I mean, those are closer. Right? Or you could lob it to the pitcher and let the pitcher deal with it. I mean, he was the one who threw it the first time, right? Why do you throw it to first base? To get him, because that's how the game is played, right? You know your job is shortstop. You get that ball, you throw it to first base because that's where the play is going to happen. Right? So people know what to do based on their position within a game, interacting with other people with different jobs based on the rules of the game. Right? That's the game stage. And it's not just about sports. It's about family life. So things like chores fall in here. School, right, certainly is where we understand different interacting roles. Not one of you walked into the room and took the most comfortable chair. Is it because you guys hate comfort, right, and just love those plastic chairs? Jude, why didn't you take the most comfortable chair? I mean, it's right there. Because it's my chair, right? Not somebody's going to take the chair. It's better than the last chair I had. The last chair I had looked like a crime scene. I was afraid to sit in it. I didn't know what had happened in that chair. All right. It's not just who sits where, right? But you guys know in school what you're supposed to do in different settings. Same with economic life. If you guys have jobs, You know what to do. Anybody here work in fast food? All right, Sammy. So what do you do? Do you have a primary job, Sammy? Okay. Okay. So, well, and it's always good to start a job, and it's nice to start out at the window and not the fry basket. Right? You're not likely to get horrible burns at the window, but you could at the fry basket. So you know what your job is, and you know what your job isn't. Your job right now isn't to go to the fry basket. Somebody else gives you the things, and you take money and give people food. Right? You know what your job is. You know when to show up. You know when to leave. You don't just leave when you're like, I've done like 5 customers now. That's pretty good. Feel like I've had 100% success rate. I don't want to risk that streak, so I'm just going to leave. Right? You don't do that because you know that you have a responsibility, other people are depending on you, and you're playing the game of work. It's not a terribly fun game, but you do get paid for it. All right. The final stage, and it's going to seem like we've skipped a lot. But again, the game stage isn't just about actual games. We're in the game stage for quite a while in life. Finally, we reach the stage of the generalized other. And this is where Mead's framework so far has been very simple, and this is where that simplicity breaks down. The generalized other is when we can kind of imagine this generic society member. It's nobody in particular. It's not a male. It's not a female. It's not a young person. It's not an old person. It's just like this generic person who kind of embodies all of what society is, what it tells us to do, what it expects, what it gives us. And we can see who we are through those imagined cultural eyes. Another way to think about the generalized other is to have developed character. Because as the kind of trite saying goes, character is what you do when you know nobody's watching. But lots of times we know what the right thing is, we know what's expected of us, and we will do that even if there are no consequences for not doing it. Now, Rylan, we're going to give you a chance at redemption here. You don't play baseball, but you do seem like a nice guy. All right, if you're walking out of Walmart and you see an elderly woman, you can just tell me she's just unloaded her groceries, and it's like 25 yards to that cart corral. And she doesn't look like walking is too fun for her. What are you going to do, Rylan? No, Rylan, you're supposed to, clearly she can't get away. You're supposed to knock her down with the cart, take her purse, and run off. Jeez, Rylan. I really thought you were going to, no, that's the right thing, Rylan. Absolutely. I'm glad you didn't say the other. I would have been very concerned. All right? No, you go and you offer and take the cart to the cart corral. Why? Because it's the right thing to do, and you know that based on society's expectations, right? We help people who need it. You're not expecting that she's going to pay you, right? And she's old. Like, you could easily sneak by her. Right? She's probably not going to hear you. She's probably got trifocals and not so great peripheral vision. Like, Rylan, you could have been on your way home, right? But you stopped to help her because, right, of the generalized other. And good on you, Rylan. Good on you. Next up is Kohlberg. Now, he focuses not on a self in general, but specifically on how we develop our own moral codes. How do we learn what is right, what is wrong, what is good, and what is bad? So, in other words, morals and values. And it's not just knowing what they are, but knowing how to follow them. So, Rylan, congratulations. You're pretty far along in this. You know what's the right thing to do, and you know how to do it. And Kohlberg has only 3 stages. I'm not saying this makes him easier, but there are only 3 stages. One of the things that's not so great about Kohlberg's is the names are longer. So the first is the pre-conventional stage. At this stage of our life, the world is only what we can perceive with touch, smell, taste, sight, hearing. That's it. We don't have empathy for other people, or very, very little empathy for other people. This is a lot like that imitation stage. We don't really try or know how to understand what other people are doing and for what reasons. This is where, again, babies and infants are. They only know what their senses tell them, and they don't care about anybody else. This is why a baby will cry at 2 a.m., especially a newborn, even if they're just a little bit wet. Right? They will scream bloody murder so that you will get up and change. They don't care that you're tired. They don't care that they just did this 30 minutes ago to eat because their senses told them they were hungry. They have no empathy. And remember, empathy is the ability to understand the perspectives and feelings of other people. And very, very small children don't care about your feelings. They're monsters. They have no ability to put themselves in another person's shoes, which is okay because children this small have no business wearing shoes. But parents of newborns always still ridiculously try to put those little baby feet in nonsensical baby shoes. Next up is the conventional stage. And this, Kohlberg's going to tell you, is where you are right now. And he's not suggesting that just yesterday, right, or a couple of years ago when you weren't teens, that you were totally pre-conventional, but you're only fully in this conventional stage in your teenage years. And at this stage, you definitely have empathy. Matter of fact, empathy is your primary driver of your social interactions. Now, you're thinking a lot about what the people around you expect you to do and how they will think about you based on how you act. Now, that's probably not me that you're empathizing with. It's your peers, right? Other people who are the same age as you. Right? You don't care if what I think you're doing is cool. Matter of fact, if I tell you what you're doing is cool, you will probably stop doing it and immediately do something else. And I would get that. But empathy is your moral guide. Post-conventional happens much later, right? And Kohlberg would tell you that you're not there yet. And although oddly enough, in high school, with all the critical thinking stuff we want to do, or we want you to do, we essentially assume that you are post-conventional. One of the ways that you can tell that you've reached this stage is that you have an abstract sense of morality. How do I know that? Well, one of the signs that you have this abstract sense of what is the right or wrong thing, regardless of whether your peers tell you it's the right or wrong thing, is that you can see a conflict between your morality and the laws of your society. So what I want you guys to do, right, to see if you're at least kind of bridging to that post-conventional stage, is give me some example that you can think of where there's a conflict in America between what you think is right or wrong and the laws of our society. There is not a right or wrong answer. Think about maybe it's some of the laws you have to follow, or some of the laws that have been in the news, or things that have been in the news that say, man, this is what America allows to happen. I don't think that's moral or right. And that will be evidence of a conflict between morality and the law. take at least a minute for thinking, and we'll see how much more time we need for the writing. Put another minute on that clock. All right, so from this, clearly some of you are able to reach into that realm of the post-conventional stage. Right? So one of the things that came up a lot, gun control or gun laws in general and abortion rights. And when we think about abortion rights as kind of flip-flopped, where before it was mostly people on the political right, religious conservatives in the United States, who saw that the law allowed abortion and they believed abortion was wrong. And so they saw a conflict between their morality and the laws of society. Whereas now, since we got down here in another comment, let me scroll. Somebody mentioned with Roe versus Wade being overturned, now that's kind of flipped. And so people more on the political left are arguing that abortion is something that should be a right and that the law is violating that right. So there's a conflict in a different direction now between morality and the law. And yeah, with gun control, it depends on what you think about rights regarding guns versus the consequence of guns. Age restrictions on things. Death penalty was another common. A lot of the same people, not always the same, some of the same people who are very opposed to abortion rights are very much in favor of capital punishment, right, which is the death penalty. Although, if you take the example of pretty Orthodox Catholics, I don't mean like Orthodox Church, but Catholics who are very conservative in their Catholic teachings, they oppose strongly abortion and the death penalty, and they view the laws of society as in conflict with those morals. All right. So nicely done. And also, I mean, this is one of those that I also think is, for some people, kind of their first real interaction with the conflict between morality and law. There are things you think you should be able to do that society tells you you shouldn't be able to do based on your age and only your age. And lots of students in this class who don't understand why they are not allowed to vote when they pay more attention and understand political issues better than a lot of people who are older than them. I get that. All right. We're going to stop there. I've taken away the exit slip because we just kind of ran a little short on the time for that. let me close that out. Okay. Was anybody missing anything from that last page of notes? Because that is the final thing here for this module and for that set of notes. So I know they're not due yet, but you may as well go ahead and turn them in if you're finished with them. If you've already put your computer away, that's fine. Just don't forget to turn them in later. We'll also say, if you didn't see the announcement on Canvas, test 2 or exam 2B grades are posted. I would give a lot of comments on the essay tests for a couple of reasons. One is very much for you. It's to get those grades back to you as quickly as possible, because I know you want to know how you did. And the second thing is, it took me a few years to learn this as a teacher, but most students do not care about comments and will not ever know that they were there. And so for a lot of students, it's just a waste to provide that feedback. That said, if you want to know why you got the grade you got, what was good, what was bad, any of that stuff, just ask me. I will tell you. So just give me a heads up. But that's why there's not written feedback of any detail in Canvas. All right, otherwise, you guys may go ahead and get up to pack up. There's no sense holding off that last few seconds today.